So have you noticed that within the last few days, there has been a lot of talk about these deep fakes, these videos that are coming out, different fake news, and this is really nothing new at this point. Today, what we're going to dive into is how NFTs can actually stop fake news. And in this episode, we're going to take a look at number one is how my mother sent me this deep fake video that absolutely riled up her emotions and what have you, and how Polygon has come up with a new solution partnering with various media companies and how they're going to build out something that I think will really be interesting to you and how you can not be fearful of what's happening within this tech space, but embrace it. Be excited for the future and see how things are going. Hello, I'm Taj, digitally known as Tropic Vibes, the host of Nifty Business, where we highlight NFTs and explore Web 3.0 as we move from pure speculation to creating real-world value. Okay, so the other day, my mother sent me a video. This is something that had her emotions firing on all cylinders. And when it comes to like fake news or just getting people to do different things via the big news media, if you will, there's really three things that really just pushes people into reacting. It's either fear, anger, or guilt. And in this particular video that she sent me, I'm not going to go into all the details of it, but it was definitely playing on her fear and her anger. This thing was something that was just completely a conspiracy of how they're trying to work against people of various cultures, was happened to be our culture, and it just had her emotion all just out of whack. And when I looked at it, I was like, you know what, this does not add up. It really does not seem logical. There's some inconsistencies within the narrative and the stories. So if people really thought these things, they wouldn't be saying these things. However, to her, she could not tell because it just seemed absolutely legitimate. Now, the old way of doing things, you would do various video cuts. You know, you would have an interview with someone and you would just chop it up and you would be able to misrepresent what was actually said. Or in the case of newspapers, you would just cut and paste the various parts of what they actually said. Did they say it? Yes. However, it was taken out of context. But now in this new age of things, as we've seen, there is just straight deep fakes with AI. There is dubbing, there's eye contact things. And even within this podcast, I've said it in many episodes before, is that sometimes when I'm recording and my wife is sleeping and I might have misspoke on a word or whatever it might be, rather than setting up the mic and re-recording that, I might just fix that one word, or if there was a pop, or right now there's actually construction going on outside. So if this was going into the podcast with some loud noise in the background, rather than re-recording everything, I could just simply go into one of these programs and just say that word over without me having to record it. So yes, there is good, there is bad. So when it comes to this particular video, it was just completely fake. The voicing, the lips, everything looked legitimate. However, just like I said, inconsistent arguments, just everything about it was just all fake. And it did not pass the logic test. So anywho, why am I bringing this up, and what does this have to do with NFTs? Well, Polygon and Fox has partnered to bring a solution. We do not trust the media. We have all of our doubts, and then on top of that, we throw in AI, we throw in technology, we throw in all of these different things that just makes things even more complicated. And I think this is very interesting in the sense that this verified protocol, it counters against all of this. You know, we live in a 24-hour news cycle where literally everything is going haywire. There is stories breaking left and right, and we just have an unquenchable thirst for the next update, the next thing. And many times we tend to gravitate towards the negative news, right? There's a saying within news that if it bleeds, it leads, meaning that if it is bad news, that's what we put as the headlines because that's what gets the clicks. That's what gets the attention, the listeners, the viewers to tune in, whatever it might be. So when it comes to all of this, to be able to fact check and verify, now, as we know, something that we might take for granted that are in Web3, we have our NFTs and we have our profile pictures, which unfortunately was taken away from Twitter, but that's another thing altogether. But when it comes to verifying ownership and all of these different things, those are things that we take for granted. However, this is something that could benefit the broader society, the world as a whole, when it comes to countering fake news. Because as we know, we can, within a few clicks, anyone that has the internet can see where this thing was originated from, verifying authenticity. So if one of these news sources has a contract where they're putting up the different medias and they're tracing it back to them, that's one way we can verify. So this protocol, without going into all the details and all the boring things, and it's still something that I'm researching myself, but basically what Polygon is doing is allowing these news medias, these various sources, to then be able to trace back the news that they break to their source. So there's no pointing fingers, because that's one thing that we absolutely hate in a world of fake news. There is no accountability. You can always say when something breaks, whether it be the BTC ETF or whatever it might be, you can say, oh, it was a hack. This was what was going on, and this was not really from us. It came out prematurely. Whatever it might be, these things happen all the time. Well, in this, you can actually trace it back to the original source, see that it really came from someone. It had to be verified, authenticated, signed. So someone who had the authority to do that was in the position to actually put this there. So I think it's just very interesting. And I think it has just greater implications, not just for this particular protocol, what's happening on Polygon, but just the broader scale of everything. Because as I said, there is just so much volume as to how much media is being put out these days. It just makes it that much easier with all these AI generated tools. Books are being produced like nobody's business, articles and so forth. So sifting through all of this to find authentic, genuine, real sources is only becoming more difficult. So one of the interesting things that I find with blockchain technology is not just necessarily the collectability and all the things that I like to speak about on the show and how businesses are using this stuff to make NFTs, but also how it could be used to verify information, authenticity of things of that nature. So it really is protecting truth. So NFTs, believe it or not, have the power to fight against fake news. Now, this is not something that's very sexy, probably won't hit the top of anyone's newsfeed or anything of that nature. However, I find it very interesting because this is something that deeply impacts all of us. We know in the US that the election season is coming up, but I heard a crazy statistic, that something like 45% of people on the earth are getting ready to vote for their leaders. Now, where I am in Jamaica, election season is coming up. In the US, we know we're heading into election season. All around the world, 45% of people are getting ready to vote for their leaders. So, can you imagine how much fake news is going to go out during this year, 2024? There's going to be a lot of deep fakes. There's going to be a lot of fake news, and it's so much easier now than it ever was. But don't fear that, because you can go all the way back to 1960. I know it's all the way back, like make it sound like we're talking about the Stone Ages, but 1960 was the first televised debate between two presidential candidates. This was Nixon and Kennedy. Now, this was brand new technology, and of course, Kennedy ends up winning this one, and it's because he understood the technology, put on makeup, had the right colors and so forth, and he looked better. And something like 6% of people said they were influenced by that debate as to who they're going to vote. Now, they ended up splitting this thing by less than a percentage point, so obviously technology made a huge impact on that. And before that, there was radio, and most recently there's social media. We can go through the recent candidates, President Obama, that grassroots efforts would then spilled over to President Trump, and how they're doing things now. Social media, radio, TV, newspaper, whatever technology there is, they're going to be used. So it could either be used for good or it could be used for bad. And in this case, I think we have the opportunity not to fear the technology itself, not to fear what could come out of it, because yes, negative things can come out of it. However, there is a lot of good, and whether or not you want to dive into this, check this out, what's going on with Polygon with this verified protocol, or if you're skeptical of what they're doing, guess what the beautiful thing is? We have the opportunity to just hop on chain, create our own thing, and be a part of the solution. So you don't like the solutions that are out there? That is one of the things that I'm really excited about this space, is that yes, we like to talk about monkey pictures and flipping and doing all this stuff and degenerating to the next mint and all this ordinals, and we have doginals and we have ETHscriptions and all of these different things within this whole space that we call Web3. Just really cool stuff. However, we can solve real world problems. That's the type of stuff that I really like. Businesses solve problems, and these are the types of things that you can solve using this technology, building a business, and that's what excites me. That's what I like to speak about. So I would love to hear what your thoughts are on this, because at the end of the day, look, you can either be a part of the solution or you can be a part of the problem. And you might not think, well, I'm not a part of the problem. I'm not putting out fake information, right? I like to think that every single one of us whatever area of life it is, we have an opportunity to be a solution for something using this technology, and that's why this excites me. Love to hear your thoughts on this particular format, how I did this live podcast, if you will. All this information will be in the show notes, linking back to this verified protocol, the news that broke about that. But I would love to hear what your thoughts are. But as usual, I just wanted to thank you for taking time to listen to this as we're learning and building Web3 together. So until next time, later. The Nifty Business Show is not investment advice. It provides insights and information within the space. As with anything, please do your own research before making a decision whether you're making an investment or a purchase.